digital is integral to our business at Princess. We've worked with influencers for Sky One, E4, ITVB, and we also produced Google's Stand Up to Cancer YouTube partnership. But today we're going to be talking about how and why we need to be successful in digital. We're going to look at what we know about our audiences, what content they want, and how they consume it. We're going to discuss how we can use that information to keep our content relevant to those audiences, and we'll also look at how we adapt TV and radio programming to digital and vice versa. And if we have time, we'll then discuss how best to work with digital talent. But we have a fantastic panel joining us. The very brilliant Ben Cooper, in charge of Radio 1 and Radio 1 Extra, reaching a combined weekly audience of over 12 million viewers with a further 3.2 million YouTube subscribers, 24 million views on the Radio iPlayer channel, and a combined 8 million audience on social media. Fantastic stats, Ben.
Thanks so much.
When you started in radio, what percentage of your job was thinking about digital content compared to now? When do you think that changed?
I think it changed in 2006 when this was launched. And I think we just have a show of hands. Who's got an iPhone? Yeah. Who's got a Samsung and actually cooler? Yeah. Who's got a BlackBerry? Well done, sir. Congratulations. Oh, okay. We'll take your word for it. Keep believing. So how many of you here are married or in a relationship where you live with another person? Okay? I'm not going to go too personal, by the way. Don't worry about this. But at night, when you have obviously decided to go to bed and your head is about to hit the pillow, do you turn to your partner and say that you love them, that they're the wind beneath your wings, the meaning of your being, or do you just check this one last time? I bet you check this one last time. How many people here, hands up, have taken their phone and used it on the loo? You disgusting people. I hope you've washed your hands. This is the thing that keeps me up at night. This is the thing that I am obsessed about because I was brought up in radio. I worked in radio as a T-boy and worked my way up to be controller of Radio 1. But it was only really in about 2006 when I suddenly realized that the radio industry had sleepwalked into a revolution. And the revolution was the smartphone. Because now we're living in the HD generation, the heads down generation. Those annoying people who walk into you in the street. Those people are the audiences that I'm trying to get to with the Radio 1 and 1 Extra brand.
Thanks, Ben. We're also really lucky to have Marcus Butler join us. Marcus's YouTube channel's combined numbers total over 6 million subscribers, and he gets 20 million plus views a month. He really is one of Britain's top influencers. Most recently made appearances on Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway and appeared on Celebrity MasterChef. Marcus, we're assuming you sit at home watching YouTube, but do you watch anything on TV?
To be completely honest with you, I do obviously spend a lot of time watching YouTube. It would be a bit weird if I didn't watch any YouTube. But yeah, I don't really watch TV in a traditional sense. I don't actually own a TV box or, you know, like a Sky or like a Virgin that's hooked up to the TV. So I never sit there, flick through channels. The only TV I watch is on demand, so through Netflix, Amazon, Now TV, or YouTube.
And had you watched Ant and Dec before you were on Ant and Dec?
Yeah, of course. Like, I knew what it was. I've never sat down and religiously watched the show. I couldn't tell you that every season and every episode what they did, but I knew what it was. But after my involvement with the show, I have a much greater respect for it and shows like that and what goes into those shows.
Great. We'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. And finally, thanks very much to William Van Rest joining us. William is the Director of Commerce and Ventures at ITV. He's been at ITV for over 10 years and is responsible for successfully building a portfolio of commercial brand extensions. William will give us an insight into the deal ITV have cut with Awesomeness, and some very impressive digital and linear results from the last series of Love Island. William, how do you consume your content at home?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that I have a big TV. I love watching that TV. I've got a young family, and for things like Ant and Dec Saturday Night Takeaway, when we're not in the studio, we'd sit in front of the TV and watch it, because we're about the big, mass, live, shared experiences. So the juggernauts, if you like, of the I'm a Celebrity's, Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, we watch it through the TV. But it's interesting that actually the TV itself is still the most popular device for people to access on demand and catch up content. So quite often you'll find me also catching up on things through the TV set, as well as on the commute, maybe catching up with something like The Dorrells, which was fantastic to watch on ITV Hub.
Great. Then let's start with talking about our audiences. Can you tell us a bit about the Radio 1 audience and broadly how they are now consuming their content?
Yeah, I think most of you have put your hands up. You've all got a smartphone. One of you's got a BlackBerry. You are consuming your content on a various number of different devices. And for me, someone who's been brought up with concentrating all the time on listening, what I had to do as controller of Radio 1 1 Extra was to say, actually, do you know what? We need to have a strategy of listen, watch and share, because that's what young audiences want to do. And so, Radio 1 1 Extra's objective for the BBC is to bring in new, young and diverse audiences. To do that, we have to be more than just a radio station. We have to have that strategy of making sure that we can make content that people want to listen to, want to watch, and then hopefully will want to share with their friends and show off that they found it first.
We were talking about listening habits in the car. Goodness knows what Grimmy was listening to yesterday as he rolled his car. But
the cat's okay, by the way.
Is that audience trailing off?
No, I think actually listening in the car is still a pure radio experience for the majority of the population in this country. I said about the radio industry sleepwalking into the sort of the revolution of the smartphone in 2006. I think we have, as an industry, have got to watch what's happening in cars. So when cars become iPads on wheels, then I think we've got to make sure that we're on that screen, that our content can be consumed. And you're already seeing it with, people wanting to have their iPads strapped to the back of their parents' sort of headrests, or if they've got a posh enough car, it's already in the headrests, etc. So I think radio has to continue to be relevant for its audiences. It used to be the bedroom, it used to be the kitchen. I think, iPads and iPhones have been very much trying to get into those spaces, and of course they will try and get into the car as well.
Thanks, Ben. William, how does your audience differ to the Radio 1 audience?
We've got a slightly different brief, obviously, from Radio 1 and what Ben's achieving in radio. I mean, TV, it's about mass scale, its reach. It reaches 94% of the population every week. And ITV is a mass market brand. It's all about those big, live, shared experiences that get the nation talking. I mean, we reach 66% of 16 to 34-year-olds every week. I think that's 10 million viewers. 76% of ABC Ones, that's about 20 million viewers, and 84% of Housewives, which is about 22 million viewers. To us, it's everybody, and we're targeting all the audiences. And across the ITV family of channels, we've got the family of digital channels as well as the mainstream. We're looking to cater for all audiences so that they're all interacting with ITV and ITV's content and spending that little bit more time with us and our family.
And how do your demographics on the Hub reflect that?
Well, the Hub is broad, profile-wise, it's broadly the same, actually, as our TV audience. I think people don't necessarily realise that we have 15 million registered users now on the ITV Hub, which is fantastic. And one of the facts that I was told the other day that I had to go back and check whether it was actually right or not was that half of the UK's 16 to 24-year-olds are registered on ITV Hub. The Hub, we relaunched it last year, and that I think was a step change in terms of its appeal, because it very much shifted it so that it put live at the heart of ITV's catch-up service. So whereas in the past it was ITV Player, we evolved it into ITV Hub, and that has allowed the live and the on-demand sort of services to work hand in hand. So it's evolved from not just a catch-up service, but actually where we're premiering. So Marcello, which there's a session on later this week, was premiered on the ITV Hub. If anybody's interested in Cold Feet, you can get the box set now of Cold Feet. All 5 series are available on ITV Hub right now. Not that I'm going to be endlessly plugging bits and pieces throughout this session. And what's interesting is during big events like the Euros on ITV Hub, you actually see up to 50% of the consumption being live. And I think that's a big shift away from not just being a catch-up service, but actually live is at the heart of ITV Hub, because that's ultimately what is at the heart of what ITV is offering.
So all ITV brands have set up YouTube channels. That's a clear strategy, is it?
Not every ITV brand. That's a selection. I think it largely depends on what is the show. I mean, we put in there the slightly tongue-in-cheek fact about Jeremy Kyle being bigger than Vice, and that is just to caveat that that's on a sort of YouTube views basis. But Jeremy Kyle is a juggernaut on YouTube. People love it. It's eminently shareable, evergreen content. And in the video, you saw the little clip of him receiving the award, because YouTube do these awards to incentivize us to keep growing subscribers at different levels. The 100,000 award, we went up at the end of March. Steve in my team went up and presented it to Jeremy. We're now just under, well, in the next couple of months we should smash through the 400,000 subscribers.
Is that another award?
I think the next one's at 1 million.
Is it?
But I think what's interesting though is that
we'll get to that.
But what's interesting is actually once you've got the momentum going. So we've only been doing this for 14 months, 16 months now. And the momentum that someone like Jeremy Kyle has achieved is absolutely phenomenal. I think once, and the challenge I think with every YouTube channel is that it takes a lot of work and effort to build the brand in that digital space and the interactions and the uploading that you need to do. So we work very closely with Little Dot Studios, and we have an online editorial content team who work hand in hand with them. They do a phenomenal job, but I think the point is that some of the television brands that have YouTube channels are really strong, but perhaps don't get the headlines that some of the newcomers get, when actually they're doing really well and they're growing rapidly. And I think they will continue to grow because they start to hit the levels where actually the algorithms kick in, people think content floats up, it gets recommended, it gets shared, and actually we're on a roll and it's going really well.
And did you set them up for commercial or editorial reasons?
A combination. For us, it's about attracting new audiences. It's about extending that reach. And so when we talk about ITV's audience, what we really want is a little bit more scale, a little bit more reach, and a little bit of everybody. My brief at ITV is look for new incremental commercial revenues, and that's across the YouTube channels, but also across live experiences and events. And if another opportunity to do a shameless plug with, for example, launching Coronation Street on tour in Glasgow. If anybody's passing through Glasgow at the weekend, that opens this weekend. But yeah, that's just a random plug. If anybody happens to be in Glasgow,
no one will be.
But I suppose we look for commercial opportunities to extend our audiences, and we balance that with the marketing opportunity that actually the whole digital ecosystem provide to us.
Marcus, you appeared in their video.
Mm-hmm. Shoving marshmallows in my mouth.
Yeah. So you recently appeared on ITV, but you have your own channels. How many awards do you have?
How many awards?
Yeah.
Because I have 2 channels, both with over 1 million subscribers. So I've got 2. When you get 1 million subscribers, you get a gold-plated plaque, which is pretty nice.
Tell us who comes to watch your videos.
Yeah. So I guess the difference with YouTube versus TV, one of the main differences, YouTube is a global platform in terms of my audience. So about 50% of my viewership comes from the UK, 20% America, and then from there it kind of spreads literally globally. I've got in the top 10 there'll be India, Germany, Australia, some Scandinavian countries, And my audience is about 75% female, 25% male. And the main bulk age is between 18 and 24, but there's also a younger age between 13 and 17, which, like in that video clip, a lot of the time people associate your audience with being just young teenagers, and that is because within my audience, I'd say there's a difference between a fan and a casual viewer. A fan is someone who will come to your meet and greets, they'll buy your merchandise, they'll buy your book, they're a fan of the work that you do. And then you have a casual viewer who fills up most of the audience, who is just someone who might enjoy watching your videos. If they see you on the street, they might say hi, but they're not going to come to your meetups, they're just happy to sit back and watch.
Does it matter to you which territory they're in? Does that make a difference?
Not really. I mean, it hasn't held me back doing anything I want. If anything, I think it gives me more diversity because I reach audiences on a global basis. And with the numbers that I'm getting, 50% of 25 million views in the UK is still like pretty big numbers, I guess. So when it comes to working with brands or anything like that, it's never caused an effect to that.
And do you think your viewers are also watching TV?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's no tool to get that kind of crossover, but I'm not going to be obnoxious and sit here and say, no, my audience aren't watching TV, because of course they are. But I do think that the younger people of my audience, and just younger people in general, are growing up watching less TV than maybe my generation growing up was. And that is because there's so much more on offer for them to watch on things like YouTube. And YouTube is such an easy, accessible tool for people to watch.
Ben, your YouTube channel has been very successful. Why is the success of that important to you and Radio 1?
It's very important because we've got to go and fish where the fish are. How many people here were new romantics? Let's test the age. How many of you were goths? Any of you were indie kids? Ravers? Hey, over for the ravers. Where has Youth Rebellion gone now? You don't see clans of young people dressed in certain ways. What you see is actually YouTube is kind of the punk rock of 2000 and teens. It's where Youth Rebellion has gone. It's where you find the stars for young people that their parents aren't going to recognise. So unfortunately, my mum will not recognise who you are.
Get it all the time.
But I'm sure she'd love you if she met you, but she's not going to know. And that's really important in terms of youth culture. And as a commissioner of content for young audiences, that's important to make sure that you're always in touch with what's happening in youth culture and making sure that you are putting your content where people want to consume it. So I've talked about the phone. It's also about the platforms, and that's why YouTube and Radio 1 and the BBC has got such a great relationship.
Do you think your YouTube channel impacts your radar figures?
Well, for me, this is the biggest issue of today. The BBC, I think, could be probably the best youth broadcaster in the world if we could just work out how to measure success in the disrupted digital age. We have things like Sherlock or Bake Off on BBC One. You have things like 13 or Fleabag on BBC Three. You have The Breakfast Show on Radio 1 or The Live Lounge. All of that great content from the BBC, from a public service broadcaster, is being consumed in the millions by young people. But the way that we capture data, the way that we think about success is through overnights for TV or in radar figures for radio. And I just think if anyone can make this figure come alive of working out how you measure success in the digital age, how you measure that fame that a brand has, or the usefulness, or the love that an audience has for that brand, then you will be incredibly rich. Please see me afterwards and let's set up a company if you've got an idea of how we can do it.
But we're told this week that the BBC is struggling to retain 16 to 34s.
I don't believe it. I believe we're struggling to connect with those audience if you look at old ways of judging success. You look at the number of people that come along to Radio 1's Big Weekend. You look at the number of young people that are going to watch Bake Off on Wednesday night, tonight. The BBC is phenomenal at creating great quality, distinctive youth content. What you have, though, is you have old ways of thinking about distributing content and great content, and then you have amazing tech companies that are brilliant at distributing content but need quality content. And that's why that partnership between people like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and traditional broadcasters is such a rich one. We've got amazing quality content. They've got amazing oil pipes to distribute it to young people in the way that they want it.
So we've learned to gather a bit more about our audiences. Some are exclusively watching TV, listening to radio on linear. Some have moved over to digital platforms, and an awful lot of people in between. How are we catering for our ever-changing habits? Tell me, Ben, do you save your best and primary content for the radio, or do you put it online?
The radio station is the train that pulls the carriages. It is where the creative process starts, and what goes into that microphone is the most important thing for us. But we are getting to a stage where actually you are thinking more as yourself of going, how do we, if our objective, back to our objective, what's our objective for the BBC? It is to bring in new, young, diverse audiences. If you stop thinking about yourself as a radio station, but think of yourself as a brand in which to do that, then I think it's about saying, right, what content can we create today? What is the absolute headline of the youth zeitgeist this morning? And what is the best platform to put that content on? And I think we're getting to a stage now where we need to reorganise the way we are structured. We've got some amazing brands, whether that be BBC Three, Radio 1 or BBC One, that connect with youth audiences. But what we need to do is, if you like, zip up and join together the way we structure our production teams and the way we organise ourselves as a corporation.
Because you can't just port linear content directly onto digital and expect that to be a success.
The worst thing is trying to get a viral hit deliberately. It's the worst thing. The internet is littered with it, and it's painful to watch. But the magic is when those moments are created and those magics do fly, and you do see it take off, and you see the numbers click over. There is something beautiful about seeing that data, rich data. And coming from the radio industry, you only get data once a quarter. To be able to see in real time how a piece of content is connecting with young audiences is a wonderful thing.
William, I feel like we hear a lot about All 4 and BBC Three and their views on commissioning original content. Where does ITV sit with this?
Well, we spend £1 billion a year on original content across the ITV family of channels. And I think it's probably true to say that within ITV Hub, our sort of exclusive content has tended to be focused on the windowing and scheduling of content that is going out onto the main channels. I think that will possibly change. I think around the Euros, we did have some short form content, the petite highlights. See what we did there. The Daily Fans show, and you'll see with things like, I guess you're about to ask me about things like the Awesomeness deal.
Yeah, I think we'd love to hear more about that.
That will, so Awesomeness for people that aren't familiar, it's a global sort of youth brand. If you look at their press release, they're living and breathing the Generation Z, but it's a very impressive guy, Brian Robbins. The company's backed by DreamWorks and Hearst. And it's taking the best of YouTube, but making really high quality premium programming. And ITV have done a partnership which is really exciting from our point of view. It's a multi-level partnership where content, because at the end of the day it is all about great content, will go out on ITV2, but it will also appear in ITV Hub. ITV Studios will co-produce some content, and then our distribution division will then sell that around the world. And this is, a lot of the programming is comedy, it's entertainment, it's serialized programming, and it's featuring social media stars. But I think what's really interesting about a company like Awesomeness is that actually they're creating content for this new generation of commissioners So Guidance is a serial drama with Amanda, one of the social media stars, Amanda Steele. That's going on Verizon Go 90. They've got something, a show called Freakland going out on Hulu later this year. They're producing content not just for for broadcasters, but actually across the piece. And I think with something like an ITV Hub, that'll be the first time that we'll have exclusive original series on ITV Hub. And I think if the content's right, I think we will be going there.
And that's targeting 16 to 24, much like Love Island, which you had massive success with this series.
Yes, and Love Island was a phenomenon. I mean, the biggest driver of 16 to 24-year-olds by volume in the UK is actually Coronation Street, and people sort of forget that. But I think what Love Island really emphasises is if you get the right content, the audiences come and they engage with your shows. So Love Island, the average television episode was getting 1.5 million views. On ITV Hub, through live and catch-up, it was getting 1 million. It got 1.6 million tweets. The app was downloaded about 1 million times. And I think the episode where Scott and Carly officially became a couple got 1.1 million 16 to 24-year-olds watching it. And it just emphasises to me that if you've got the right content, if you're commissioning the right content, the audience will come. And across the ITV family, that's absolutely what we're intended to do, where we commission the content that people are talking about, interacting with, and watching.
But as a traditional broadcaster, do you think you can compete with third-party platforms that are designed specifically to exploit digital content?
I'd say we're a proven broadcaster and a proven media, and I think actually in the new digital ecosystem, it's entirely possible to work in collaboration with platforms as well as competing on some levels. I mean, I think we have a fantastic relationship with YouTube where our channels only launched sort of 18 months ago, and we've worked very closely with them in terms of how to optimize and make the most out of their platforms. But that doesn't prevent us from going after things where we're competing. But I think it's in this new sort of grown-up world, we can absolutely live together because we're looking for slightly different flavours out of it.
Marcus, in this new grown-up world, what was your incentive for appearing on Saturday Night Takeaway?
I guess the incentive was working with a massively successful show and being able to have some sort of creative input, because the amount of times I've been asked to be a host of a show or present something or be involved in a TV show hasn't interested me, because what I do and create on YouTube, I have every say in. I write the stuff, I produce it, I edit it, I put it out there. Everything that's on there I can have a final say on, and as soon as you bring that stuff into TV, when you see a presenter presenting something, someone else has written that script for them, someone's editing that, someone's going to do this, someone's going to do that. And I think when we sat down with ITV, it was a very last minute kind of thing, but it was really cool that they respected us and they wanted our input in the show, and we kind of were like, look, none of us are sure how this is going to work. ITV were like, we know we quite like to get some YouTubers involved, and we were like, oh, it's really cool to work with a big show. How can we build this partnership together? So that's why me and Alfie were like, let's give this a go and see what it's like. And it was eye-opening for both parties, and we learnt so much, and it was a great experience in the end.
It did seem to have an impact on the figures, William, didn't it?
It did. So the 16 in the Barb rating, 16 to 34-year-olds were up 8%. And I mean, Marcus and Alfie were fantastic at driving the sort of the social conversation and the activities. And I think it's part of the mix that was on offer. So our online content team worked incredibly hard with the production team to create a whole array of bits and pieces, whether it was the periscoping that Ashley Roberts did live backstage from every single show, the tweets that were going out, the Q&As with the guest announcers like Mark Hamill, taking part in it. There was an awful lot of activity, and I think the Marcus and Alfie bits and pieces were particularly important, because I think it started off actually because it came in via our digital team. So our digital online team introduced the idea of working with the guys. and you were, for example, running the Pac-Man course.
Yeah.
So there were various challenges in the show that Ant and Dec were going to be doing, and you road tested it and then blogged about it and put it up. And there was one where you were riding motorbikes around the ITV studios. I don't know if you remember that, but it caused chaos amongst the office for most of the week leading up to it while they were doing rehearsals and health and safety checks, because 2 lifts were out of order. And if you know what the lifts are like in ITV studios, you can imagine what that caused. But what was brilliant was that the production team, and Ant and Dec as well, really embraced having Marcus and Alfie around, so that actually the bit that you saw in your video, in both our videos, was the Nana Barb example, where the audience hits team within the production team were asking Marcus and Alfie to help with one of the production elements of it and getting integrated into it. And I think your ideas counted to that and contributed to that.
Marcus, do you think that your viewers followed you to TV?
Yeah, for sure. I think on the first episode of Saturday Night Takeaway that we were in, I don't know the stats, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Saturday Night Takeaway was trending worldwide. So were me and Alfie. I can't remember the hashtag, but it was like Malfi on TV or something like that. Yeah. And they had like 33% of the tweets and we had 32% of the tweets. So just to show like me and Alfie were in the same league as everyone watching ITV, I guess that goes to show that we were having some sort of influence on the show.
And with younger viewers, do you think young people are not watching as much TV because there's no programming there? Or is it there's no programming there because young people aren't watching as much TV?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. Like I think young people just aren't watching TV, like I said earlier, as much as they used to. What was really nice is when I did MasterChef, there was a lot of press around MasterChef, saying why should I be on the show and who am I and blah, 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 blah. Even though that on the show, when I gave the figures, it was nice that they put it on. They said that I was getting 25 million views a month. Even when you're telling or people hear that, they think, oh, it's online, it doesn't really count. So there was a lot of press around it saying, who are you, and all this stuff. And it was really nice to read some of the comments of the nice people. There's a lot of horrible stuff, which was really funny to read anyway. But there was some comments from parents that were saying, oh, this was really nice because our kids never sit down and watch TV with us, but they knew that you're on the show, so it kind of brought the family together, blah, blah.
Actually, on MasterChef, on TX1 that you were in, it had the highest amount of tweets across the series. So you got there were 14,000 tweets on TX1. It beat the finals night of 7,000. So you felt that engagement for Celebrity MasterChef?
Yeah, of course, because I was driving it massively. It was really exciting for me to be on a show that I thought was a good fit for me, and I wanted to share with my audience my whole experience, and that clearly took over on it online.
Ben, as the person on the panel who produces both digital and linear content, fundamentally, do we need to produce digital content differently to how we produce linear?
Yes, you do. I think there are different ways of getting a story arc right for different platforms, and I think you have to be just always referring back to the audience and referring to, well, what do they like doing on Twitter? What do they like doing on Snapchat? Vomiting rainbows. If you thought about vomiting rainbows in a linear radio way, you'd be mad. But if you think about it in Snapchat and swapping our faces, then you go, okay, well, that's cool. We can do that sort of thing. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. So I think what we're talking about, we constantly keep saying, young people don't watch TV. Well, when I was growing up, there was nothing on the TV for young people. There was nothing. But I got to a certain age in teenage years where there was something that was outrageous and raucous, and The Word came on the TV screen, and you saw people licking armpits, and you saw L7 with her pants down in the band L7 asking mum and dad. And it was just, it was raucous, it was crazy, it was young. And I think there's a generation of TV executives that are mourning the loss of seeing that anarchy on a TV screen. What we have, as you said, Coronation Street brings in the biggest youth audiences for ITV. So young audiences are coming to TV, but what you spoke about is about the energy that surrounds a TV programme. And I think in this day and age, you cannot be bored. There's always something to do if you've got your phone. And what YouTubers can do is bring that energy. You know, traditional broadcasters know how to hold a party, but we're not sure sometimes how to invite people and get the invites to them. And so what we do is we engage with those people who are brilliant at getting those invites out, and bringing a bottle and bringing a crowd to the party. I mean, Dan and Phil on Radio 1 on a Sunday night, when they're broadcasting on a Sunday night, would not only bring a crowd to the radio station through listeners, but they'd also bring a crowd to New Broadcasting House. And what would happen is that crowd would wait outside for Dan and Phil, and they knew that Radio 1 studios were on the 8th floor. So they'd watch the lift, and they'd count down, and they'd see the lift had gone to 8, so it was this excitement, and they would shout out 7, 6, 5, 4, and there'd be this huge expectation, and then a cleaner would walk out the lift, and they'd all go, oh. And you can bring a party, and I think that's what we've got to, again, back to this point, if we can work out new ways of judging what success is in the disrupted digital age, then we will stop panicking that we've lost audiences, and we'll actually get down to going back and concentrating on the content and getting the content right and those stories right on TV, but also taking those bits of content from that show and putting them out onto the social media, because you want to have what's called, I think in America, golden reach as a broadcaster. You want your content on your channel. But what you can do is you can take those little snippets of content or some of those really exciting bits and use them as bait to go fishing on the other digital platforms and say, look, you like this? Come over here and you can see this. You know, look at James Corden.
Yeah.
You know, if I was CBS, I'd be really pissed. You know, how many people visit the CBS website? None. Go to YouTube, 63 million watched, you know, one of those pieces of content. And so I think, you know, broadcasters are now, we're engaging with third-party platforms to answer the question of this session. Yes, you've got to get involved, but now you've got to think even cleverer about how the relationship is. We've gone on a few dates, we decided to get married, but now we've just got to sort out the ground rules.
But how do you physically structure your teams at Radio 1 to address that?
Okay, so at the moment, you know, like the BBC as a whole, it is divided into the radio, you know, the audio, the visual, and the online. And what I'm about to do next year is, come after Christmas, is I'm going to change that structure, and we're going to, we've been running a series of ideas and thoughts and workshops about going future-proofing our production. And I think what we need to do at the BBC as a whole is do exactly the same. We need to restructure our production. Okay.
I think that's for a whole other session. But you talked a bit about Dan and Phil. They came from YouTube. Marcus, what's your experience of working with TV producers? Did you find that difficult?
I haven't found it difficult. My experience of working with TV is just Takeaway, for example, was just the first thing I remember me and Alfie walking on when we walked in. We were just absolutely mind blown by the amount of people that worked on a production like that. Obviously, it's live TV, which probably makes a difference, but even with MasterChef, everything I've been involved with is the amount of the teamwork that goes behind it, whereas behind my channel there's me and one other guy, 2 people. And it's like we're getting similar numbers, if not more, than certain TV shows, and that to me is fascinating. But there's never been the only thing, none in my experiences, but I know people have had, is just when people don't take YouTubers seriously, when it's like we've got this huge audience and this huge following, but they're still like, oh, but it's online, isn't it? It's not a real audience. And it's only when, I guess it's changed recently as we've done more traditional things, like when they see that we've sold books and we've got #1 bestsellers, or we've done these things that traditionally make you successful. The more things that we do like that, I think we're going to start being taken seriously. But I just think it needs to get to a point where both people like me, YouTubers and producers or whatever, can work together on something, rather than just thinking, oh, we'll stick a YouTuber in this show and it will become successful. It's like, we know our world, you know your world, let's work on something together and combine the best of those, and then you'll get something hopefully amazing, bringing new audiences.
Have you seen that happen yet with any of the other influencers that you know?
Not really. Not to the point that I think it can become. I mean, for me in Takeaway, it was the start of something. And I remember speaking with Ant and Dec after the show wrapped, and they were like, this is the start of something really exciting, because it was really nice for me to hear it from them that they had the same vision. They, they're top of the TV world. I'm somewhere in this internet world, and they were just as excited to combine the two worlds. And I really think there is a place for that.
But I think we get mixed messages though, because often we're told that YouTubers don't want to be on TV, and then we hear that Joe and Casper, Pixie Woo, Louise Sprinkler Gitter, they have deals. They're doing deals now with BBC Worldwide. But I think we're confused as to whether you want to be involved in linear.
Yeah, I think I'm going to speak on behalf of a lot of YouTubers, but if people were to say no, it's a bit naive, because it's me speaking personally. It's not that I'm saying no, I don't want to be involved in linear, because I know it has massive outreach and there's things that I want to make. Like, I'm writing a sitcom right now. I know that there might be a place for that to sit on traditional TV. It might sit online as well, but I'm not going to shut the door on that, because I know it has huge reach. It's just getting something that works right. It's not just sticking a YouTuber on a show and presenting something. It's having our creative input on a show. That's what I see the future.
William, do you think the future for ITV is working with digital talent such as Marcus?
It's not. I mean, they play a part, absolutely, because I think that it's part of the. I mean, ITV, we're heart of popular culture, and absolutely they're at the heart of popular culture. So I think we've got to work on side it. I mean, the fundamental. The future of ITV depends on the quality of the ideas and content that we're commissioning and putting out on our channels. And I think. I mean, what's great about this new digital ecospace, if you like, is actually the technologies meeting innovation and creativity. It's fusing together. There's some great ideas actually coming out of it. That's not to say that they won't come from other places as well. Let's not forget that there's a whole raft of things. But what I think is really exciting is the number of people, and you described it as was almost like the punk rock area. Where is that pirate radio space where you can try things and test things, and actually some of those ideas translate into TV, some of them don't. Some of them are perfectly happily existing in that digital world. But I think there's a lot of inspiration and ideas and talented people that people can learn from. But ultimately it will be about getting that great content.
Well, shall let's just refer back to the title of the session. Winning in broadcast means success in the digital space. Ben, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. As a commissioner of content for young audiences, I believe it's essential to do that. You have the quality and expertise of a traditional broadcaster, but as you say, you also have the energy and the anarchic kind of let's try this out. And the success that has brought. And if you can marry those two together, then we've got a very, very exciting future. I think we've got to separate this idea out at the moment that television isn't serving young people. It is brilliantly. But what it's not doing is having those anarchic moments on television. You're not seeing those great creative minds that are challenging the status quo come through and be on screen. That's happening elsewhere. And hopefully the talent's all there, just needs to come together and needs some daring commissioning.
And William, your thoughts on that from ITV's perspective?
So from our point of view, I think you've got to have a digital plan. Digital is with us, but actually it's fundamentally that great content, easily accessible, and being, to quote Ben, fishing in the different ponds. We've got to keep ourselves relevant and keep ourselves there. But fundamentally, television, we've got a robust business model. It's working. We're not going anywhere. To coin a phrase, we're going everywhere. We're here to stay.
Marcus, you're here to stay?
Yeah, of course. I see this as the future. Everyone always says like, oh, you must be using YouTube as a stepping stone to do other things. And it's like, when I first started YouTube and it got popular, that was, I was like, involved in this new world that no one's been at the forefront of, and I feel like I'm very lucky to be at the forefront of this platform, of this new era that hasn't been there before. So whether that's working with TV companies and producers, which I think there is, I've already spoken about that. But yeah, I think YouTube is the future and digital content.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're sort of running out of time, but any questions?
No, good.
Someone at the back?
Yeah, I've been helping out on the filmmakers and trying to distribute their online content for BBC Channel 4. Oh, thank you. And one of the main issues that I've constantly run up against is the fact that people respond, content cannot be viewed in my country. How do you think the digital, whenever you put something online, it's global, but because you're mainstream broadcasters in the UK, I often find that you're lynched to the specific UK audience. How does that impact how you're able to deliver content? If that's a question.
Maybe that's a question for you, Marcus. Sort of global versus domestic audience.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I see like there's a lot of like the Spanish world of YouTube right now is growing massively, and for me it's like I speak English and a lot of the world does speak English, and it's really cool to think that there's people around the world watching my content, but there's still so many markets that I can't tap into because of a language barrier. So whilst having a global audience, it's like, yes, you do have a global audience, but there's still so much that isn't tapped, and there's probably a lot more that I could be doing to reach those audiences.
It's also an issue of rights. We have it all the time. So for example, when someone comes and performs in the Live Lounge and you put that on YouTube, it depends on what record label they're on, whether it goes into YouTube directly or whether it goes in via Vivo. So I think the world we're in at the moment is there's some very powerful organisations who have some very expensive rights that they want to look after, and they've paid for them, so they want to hold on to that what is legally theirs. And I think this idea of sort of you just put it on the internet and go everywhere. Well, there are some very important people with some very important rights that need to be taken into consideration. You make content, you wouldn't want your content just distributed without you getting payment back.
Sure.
And I think it's that difference. If you're making content and it's in your bedroom, you don't mind who sees it, that can go globally. But if you're creating something that you want to sell, rather than use that as marketing to sell merchandise, then there's different sort of economies that we've got to get right, and different sort of marketplaces, if you like, that we've got to get right. I think that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hope so.
Some down here.
I was just wondering, and this is a kind of question to all three of you, how important is social engagement in terms of, do you view it, maybe on BBC Radio, do you kind of view it as part of your success? Whereas I'm sure with you, Marcus, that is kind of the whole basis of how you engage with your fans. So, and is that something that you see in the next 5 or 10 years becoming more important, or do you feel like that's a phase that will subside?
Shall I go first?
Sure, yeah, you're right. For me, obviously, it's pretty much everything, and I think one of the reasons YouTube and what I do on YouTube is successful is because it's so personality driven. It's me connecting with an audience who relate to me, or they see me as relatable, and if that barrier wasn't there, or if I didn't have that approach, or it's the same for the whole of YouTube, then I wouldn't be in the position I am now. And I think people are connecting with me on that social basis, that I am sharing parts of my life with them, or things that I find funny, etc. And they are connecting with me. So whether that's on Snapchat, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, my following goes across all those platforms, and everything I do is based off of that social connection. Whether that's I've set up other businesses around that. I created a healthy subscription snack box called Saucebox, and that business is a success in itself because I have my social reach to be able to push that business through to. So for me, it's vital in everything I do.
For us, it's a way of connecting with our audience. Simple as that. You know, when I was young, if you wanted to get in touch with a TV program like Alive and Kicking, you'd have to write them a postcard. You know, you might be able to ring a radio station, but no one would answer the phone. You know, it's about tapping into that conversation with your audience. So it's vital. What's fascinating is the different conversations and the different appreciation for those conversations that you have on different platforms. So for example, Twitter, slightly older, Snapchat, slightly younger. Instagram, we have not as many people on Instagram as we do on Twitter. I think Twitter we've got 2 million followers, something like that. We've got less followers, but the love that you get from an Instagram follower is much more higher than a Twitter follower, and the engagement that you get. So Grimmy's Instagram account has so much of a sort of following and a love and an appreciation for it. So it's fascinating for broadcasters, I think, to try and get a handle on, right, this program is probably going to be more a Twitter conversation. This program is probably going to be much more Snapchat conversation. And I think that's the nuances that we're getting into now, which is really exciting.
I think
From a sort of compliance point of view, compliance and legal, aren't broadcasters massively more hamstrung than kind of YouTubers? And I guess kind of just what's everyone's thoughts on that, because YouTubers and that world can take a lot more risks, and I would imagine that risks are ultimately more appealing to a younger audience, and kind of partly as well, I guess then, how do we maybe police that, because sometimes it's not always a good thing, I guess from yourself, Marcus, and then from your guys' point of view, how do we compete?
I think we need to be quick, guys, because we're running out of time.
Marcus, do you want to
Yeah, you're right. YouTube is about taking risks, and all of those decisions sit on my shoulders. So if I think, oh, I'm going to stick 5 seconds of a song I know I can't really use in my video, but hey, I'm probably going to get away with it. It's just me that process has to go through. I'm sure these guys can sit here and say, if someone wants to use someone's song, they have to go through the label, they have to get contracts written, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, it's like...
ASA, the compliance, Ofcom, yeah, we're fully compliant.
Same.
But
and I think it'll be great to have a level playing field, and I'm sure regulation will catch up in a way. I think, on ITV Hub, we're absolutely, we're clear with our audiences what we're offering, how brands are involved. We've got a very robust business model, which is why I come back about television. We're here to stay because we're well policed, we're well regulated, and we're established.
I don't mind the regulation, to be honest, because I think as a parent, you go, well, yeah, I do want things that my children could see or hear to be regulated. I think what we've got to do is get better at making sure that we guide our audience. So, on the radio, we could put out a Red Bull sound system concert that was after 9 o'clock. It had so much swearing in it that it was just, you were like, oh, there we go, there's the first F-bomb, right, okay, oh, I don't know that word, what's that word? I'll just check the Urban Dictionary. Oh, okay, right, fair enough. So you can broadcast some really strong content on a traditional platform. You just have to make sure that you guide your audience and take your audience on a journey to say, there's going to be something here that not all of you are going to like. But what we are competing with is the on-demand world, where actually, do you know what? If I want to see Narcos at 7 o'clock in the morning, I can switch my TV on, flick on Netflix and watch it. But on a traditional broadcast, I could never see that on ITV at that time of the day. So that's what we're competing with, is not actually the rules and regulations, it's about the fact that actually there's that choice now of on-demand consumption and watching stronger content anytime you want.
I'm afraid we're out of time, but thanks so much for joining us, all three of you. And thanks to YouTube for sponsoring the session. Thanks so much.